Hey friends, in this lesson what we're going to do is we're going to look at the applications of logarithmic functions. Now, the normal three types of applications that we will see in 30-2 are typically the Richter scale, the pH scale, and the decibel scale. Now, keep in mind these aren't the only three we'll see, but they're the go-tos. You don't need to memorize any of the formulae that are given here. They will always be given in the question. Now, I'm only going to go through earthquakes because really all three of these work pretty much the same. So if you can follow along with earthquakes, which is the most common that we get, then you're probably fine for the other two. So here's a question. Um, this is how it would look written on a diploma. So it says the magnitude of an earthquake. So M can be calculated using this formula where M is equal to log I, where I is the intensity. So that's how strong it is measured by a seismograph. Okay, so now here's the question. An earthquake measures 7.6 on the Richter scale. Its aftershock measured 4.1. How many times more intense was the earthquake? Okay, so here's what we've got, friends. We've got two different earthquakes. We've got the earthquake of 7.6, so a magnitude of 7.6, and we've got the earthquake with a magnitude of 4.1. So what I'm going to do here is, okay, I'm stuck. I don't know what to do. It's my first time doing this. I don't know what to do. Well, I've got a formula. So what I've learned from my many years of math is when I've got a formula, let's sub in some numbers and let's see what happens. So I sub that into both of my formula, just like that. There's my magnitude, there's my magnitude. Okay, so what? Now what? What do I do? Well, it says how many times more intense. So what do we need to solve for? Intensity, that's I. So what I'm going to do here then is we need to solve for I. Well, I, intensity, it's the unknown that's inside my logarithm. Well, if my unknown's inside my logarithm, let's convert to an exponential. So it's base 10, I is equal to 10 to the 4.1. And I'm going to call that intensity 2 because it's our second intensity, right? We've got two of them. And then I come back to the other one here and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to call this I sub 1. It's our first intensity is 10 to the exponent 7.6. Now, what am I going to do with these two things? It says I have to solve for intensity and I've got two intensities. Well, it says how many times more intense? Okay, well, what are we going to do here? Well, before we work with these, let's just talk about this for a second. Let's say I have, I don't know, $2 and you have $10. How many times more money do you have than me? Well, you have 5 times more money than me because 10 divided by 2 is 5. What did we just do? How many times more anything is the bigger divided by the smaller? How many times more is the bigger divided by the smaller? Let's do it. Let's go for hot pink. Times more intense. Times more intense is equal to the bigger, which is I sub 1 over the smaller, I sub 2. Okay, I'm just going to go sideways here. I know I shouldn't, but it's just going to keep it on the screen. So I sub 1 is 10 to the 7.6. I sub 2 is 10 to the 4.1. And now, friends, when we're dividing and we have the same base, we subtract our powers like that. And that's 10 to the 3.5. And whatever that number happens to be, that's how many times more intense we are. That's it, friends. So what did we do? One more time. We subbed in our given magnitudes into our equations. We had two of them. We isolated for intensity by switching to an exponential, and then we found times more intense by dividing those intensities by going the bigger divided by the smaller. Okay, you'll get the same question with decibels and pH saying, here's a sound, it's really loud, here's a sound that's not as loud. Here's an acid, here's a base, how many times stronger? So they're all the same, like I was saying. Okay, let's just do one more. Let's go blue. So we got an earthquake in Cusco, Peru. That's where you start to climb up to go to Machu Picchu. Was measured to be 102 times more intense than an earthquake in Railay, Thailand, where if you're into rock climbing, you should go. The magnitude of the earthquake in Cusco was 5.8. What was the magnitude of the earthquake in Railay? Okay, these earthquakes didn't happen. I just made them up because they're two of my favorite places. So formula would always be given to you. Look like that. What do I have? Well, I don't know what I'm doing. Story of my life. But I've got two earthquakes. I've got Cusco and I've got Railay. So let's see what we can do. It says the earthquake magnitude in Cusco was 5.8. Okay, so that's that. Sub it in. The magnitude of the earthquake in Railay, I don't know. That's what I'm trying to find. Maybe let's call that X, right? That's what we're trying to find. Okay, so now, same thing. How many times? It tells me how many times more intense. It was 102. So we got to solve for intensity. So again, unknowns inside my logarithm. I convert to an exponential. Might call that again I sub 1. Don't have to, but I like to. I sub 2, the earthquake in Railay, is 10 to the exponent x. So times more intense. So times more intense, what I'm going to do, times more intense is the bigger divided by the smaller. While the one in Cusco was said to be the larger one. So we're going to divide these two things. And this time I'll go down the page properly. So this will be 10 to the 5.8 over 10 to the x, but this time it tells us it's 102 times more intense. So there's that 102. Okay, we just keep simplifying. Divide on the right-hand side here. So we subtract our exponents like that. Look at that. Now we've got an exponential, but we can't make the bases the same. So guess what we're going to do? Convert back to a logarithm. So log base 10, I'll even write it. We don't need to. It's a common log of 102 is equal to 5.8 minus x. All I'm going to do here is I'm going to add x to both sides and subtract by log 102. And then all we need to do from here is just stick this thing into our calculator. So we go and grab our calculator and we say 5.8 minus log 102. Bingo, rounded to the nearest tenth, we would say that this is 3.8. That's it, my friends. So there is the intensity that we're going to have of this one. We would say x is equal to 3.8. So the magnitude of the other earthquake was 3.8. There it is, friends. That's how you do the applications questions. Decibels, pH, earthquakes, they're all pretty much the same. Alrighty, hope that helped.